in terms of what we did, you know, just basic obedience stuff. I taught him the prong. We taught him how to use the e-collar. And then we ended up here with the lash because I was having a lot of trouble with him.
Yeah.
A lot of redirection. If I correct him too high, a lot of stress.
He will redirect a little bit.
He will redirect. He bit me in the back of the leg once. And at home, as soon as he goes out and he smells the dog, he starts to react.
Got it. Okay. And when you say reacting, like all that, like we were seeing going through the door and stuff, is that kind of what it looks like usually, or?
It's much worse than that. So
much
like
worse.
He's got the Beagle howl. He's got you know, he's got all that stuff. Lots of pulling with the owner. Lots of.
And do you find that with the redirecting, it's only when he's in a really heightened state of mind he does it? Okay, got it. And then as far as his obedience and stuff and like, you know, the e-collar and all that, have you pretty much used that for everything at this point or only for select things?
So I would say probably more for select things.
Yeah.
So e-collar mostly for corrections.
Yep.
And the prong mostly for corrections.
And the corrections for any specific things, or like have you used it for like sits and downs and walking and?
Mostly for walking.
Mostly for walking. Okay, got it. All right. Well, let's do this. So let me see you, let me see you just kind of walk him around this area a little bit here, and I want to just watch how you're communicating with him, and then we'll make some tweaks from there as we need to.
Sweet, good. Those are come. Let's go. Good boy.
That's what you were saying? Yeah, yeah. Cool. And this better, worse, about the same as it normally in this type of context is?
It's about the same.
Okay, cool.
So the reason why I'm stopping and petting him is because I can see that his tail is going a lot.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of, you know, stress coming out of him.
Yeah, yeah.
So make sure that he's a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
Come. Boy. Boy. Good job. Good sit. Yes. Pound some cheese.
He seems relatively food motivated, which is good.
Yeah, he's good. He's good with the food. He even food in the muzzle, so it's not a problem.
Yep. Okay, so here's the next thing I want to see. So right now, obviously, you're holding your leash pretty short for control, right? Which is obviously fine. That's a normal stage of the training process.
Sure, yeah.
But I want to see is if you're not holding that leash short, will he still be able to maintain position with you? And what this tells me is if he does, he clearly understands the thing that you're asking him to do, right?
Okay.
If he doesn't, if it gets way sloppier when you give him more slack on the leash, that the leash is what's doing all of the work right now. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So what I want you to do is you could hold that leash super loose. I want you to communicate with him how you normally would, right? With your e-collar, with your leash, however, right? And do the same exact thing and we'll see what it looks like.
So do you want me to correct him if he breaks?
I want you to do whatever you normally would.
Okay.
However you normally would correct with a looser leash.
Okay, cool. Closer, come.
Handle only then?
Yeah, that's good.
Sit. Yes, good boy.
Pretty good.
Come, closer, come. Good. Closer, come.
Now for any of this right now, are you using your e-collar right now?
Not at all, no.
Not at all. Okay, cool.
Good boy, dude. Nice job. Good boy. Sit. Come. That's a good boy. Very nice.
This looks pretty good. So what I want to see now is same deal with the loose leash. I really want you to try to force yourself to keep that loose leash here. And we're just going to start walking down the street here.
Okay.
I'll have you kind of lead the charge, and same deal. We'll see what it looks like as we start walking.
Closer, come. Good boy.
Still try a little looser on that leash there. There you go.
Good, buddy. Nope. Good boy. Nope. Good.
All right, so we're gonna go up a little bit further here. Once we get to the, like where that fire hydrant is, we'll come to a stop for a second and kind of talk about this. You knew exactly where the geese were. They're running. They said, we know Dozer's coming. Yeah. All right, let's come to a stop for a second here. Okay, so right off the rip, couple things I'm seeing, right, is that it doesn't seem to me like he's really understanding exactly what he's getting corrected for. And here's why I say that. A lot of your corrections you were giving, though I understand what you were correcting for, he was starting to kind of pass you. I would argue that in that moment, he wasn't that conscious of the fact that he was 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches in front of your leg, right? Okay. So again, just what I do, I tend to wait for the dog to make much more committed mistakes before I give corrections to enhance the probability that it's going to be clear to them what it's for and how to avoid it, right? So what I'll do in a second here is I'm going to show you kind of what I mean by that and where exactly I would start to draw that line so you can kind of get a feel for it. And I think because, in my opinion, I don't necessarily know if he knows what he's getting corrected for in this moment, I think that's why you're noticing when you correct him, he's getting more amped up, right? It's frustrating. It's like, God, what the hell? You know what I mean? Because it's not a winnable game to him in the moment. You know what I mean? He's just kind of getting nagged, and he's never actually fixing his behavior a whole lot. Okay. So let's do this. Do you mind if I take him for a second?
Please.
I'll take the leash from you. Thank you.
Just be careful.
Yep. Understood.
He's a jumpy one.
Can I see your e-collar remote as well?
Yeah, sure.
Man, if the dog I get bit by today is a Beagle. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go back to doing the same drill, the up and down, obviously, but right now we can tell, obviously, he's a lot more distracted, right? Because we're on the street here. And I'm gonna go kind of up and down the sidewalk here a couple times. I'm gonna stay super loose on the leash, and I am going to wait until he is committed to, I'm off. I'm going that way. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna implement a 180 turn with a correction, obviously, similar to what I just did right there, to get his attention off that dog, obviously. And I'm gonna see if I can get him to start shifting this attention onto me and not need those corrections anymore. And I'm gonna be using the e-collar for that. So if you want, you could walk with me. I'll have everybody else just kind of stay here as I do this. So, and you use what, heel or come or?
So those are come.
Those are come? Okay, cool. Those are come. No, come.
You're using the e-collar as well at the same time?
I'm using the e-collar for this, yes. No, come. So super loose on that leash. I'm allowing him to make those mistakes, obviously.
Sure.
And then when he makes the mistake, that's when I'll give the correction for it. And I'm pairing my corrections with no, obviously.
Right.
Beautiful. So same deal, I see he's looking ahead. A lot of times this is where we would start trying to kind of interrupt and correct and stuff. I don't want to do that yet. I want to give him the option to either make the mistake or not make the mistake, and we'll see what we get. And see how he checked in with me, made a good decision. Obviously we'll get into like where we would start adding in rewards into this process in a second, but right now I'm just showing you where I would give the correction. No, come. So right there, notice he started getting distracted, and then finally he made the decision to start going ahead, right? Cross real quick, yeah. Good job, bud. Wait till this car goes by for a second. Now, I don't care about a sit or anything when I stop. Right now, I only care about the come command. Come. You see how we're getting pretty good attention right now, obviously.
So when would you start introducing rewards?
Yeah, so as soon as he starts making good decisions, so technically right now, if I were just training him, I would probably start adding in some rewards for a good check-in around a distraction or something like that. And I'm not gonna be overly nitpicky right now about like left side, right side, behind. I'll kind of use my leash to guide him there. I'm really correcting for that total lack of focus and him darting ahead. Okay. Or if he committed to like trying to pull off to the side to go like sniff that pole or something.
Sure. So you're kind of narrowing it down.
Yeah.
As you go, right?
So my whole kind of idea with a lot of this kind of stuff is I make my expectations a little bit looser, but then I raise the bar for the accountability for those expectations, sure. Right? So like I talked about at the beginning, make it really easy for him to succeed. Make your expectations so simple, right? But then be very firm about the expectation. And right now, not making any mistakes. And if anything, you see he's kind of overcompensating and staying a little further back. Hell yeah, that's him just wanting to make sure he does the right thing. And then obviously just no stress or anything right now because he's doing well. He's just chilling. He's doing it great.
How would you judge your equal correction level?
Based on his response. I actually don't even know. I'm at a 50 right now. Okay. I don't even really look at it. So okay. I kind of follow this unspoken, here we go, got a geese up here too. I follow this like unspoken thing in my head of like big turn, little turn, I call it. So, so as I give a correction, if I see that he cared about it, but I need just a little more, I just do a little turn. And then if I feel like it was obvious that it was way too low, I do a big turn. And generally, I've kind of tested it. My little turns are like 5-ish. Okay. My big turns are like 15-ish. Okay. And we're just chilling. Yeah, he's no idiot. He knows they're there. Checking in well. Again, super loose on the leash here. Little sniffing. I'm going to wait till he makes the decision, obviously. Check back in, totally fine. If he committed to going off, I would have given a correction for that. Same deal, checked in, fine. Wait for the committed mistake. So I mean, I think too often we get a little too naggy and it creates a ton of frustration with the dogs. Beautiful, good job, buddy. No, come. So right there, did big turn down, right? Seemed a little bit high, he wasn't super distracted, obviously. Cool. But notice he was thinking about making the mistake, then he committed to making the mistake, right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn around, we'll start walking back this way, but I'm gonna have you do this.
Okay, sweet.
Super, super loose on the leash. There you go.
Good boy, let's go.
I missed that correction you just did. Did he go forward?
Yeah, too far ahead.
Okay.
He lost me, he was like almost at the end of the leash.
Oh.
Try me even a little looser on that leash. There you go, perfect. And that engagement he's given you is beautiful right now. That looks great. If you want now, since he's doing pretty well, you could start adding a couple rewards in periodically. Don't get over the top with it, but you know, every now and then if you want to stop, give him a little piece of cheese, totally fine.
So when you give him rewards, are you not afraid of taking him into break, right?
Not really. Yeah. Try to even, just for kind of shits and giggles here, try to nix that sit even. We're just focused on that come command, and if you come to a stop, he should still stop with you. So.
You shouldn't tell him to stop.
No, you shouldn't need to. It's not wrong to give a sit there by any means. You absolutely can. Yeah, sure. But you gave him that because you were concerned that he would, because of the truck, that he would go, or what was your?
Truck coming.
Yeah. Sure. But did you specifically use your sit to try to make sure he didn't go into the street? Is that why?
Yeah.
I understand. Okay. So in that situation, I understand that logic completely, but just enforce, he's in an expectation where he still should stay with you. And don't worry about repeating any commands there, just keep walking. So a lot of this just is about doing less, right? So communicate much less and more clearly here. And in those situations, if he's dragging a little behind, dragging behind isn't that big of a deal right now. He's obviously just giving you good engagement and making sure he can see you. Beautiful. And if he does get a little too distracted because somebody's walking close behind him, that leash will get him moving with you. We're really focused on that front boundary right now, or the front kind of half of the radius, if you will. And notice so far, have you needed to give any corrections on the way back? Right, so no nagging, no corrections, anything, because we kind of isolated the specific problem. We're a little more clear about the correction with it, so.
So if I want to work with the client.
Say that again, sorry.
If I want to work on this specifically with the client.
Yeah,
right? Where do I start? So do I start in the same place?
Yeah. Yeah, he's clearly has had enough training under his belt.
Right. We've been working in the last couple of days here.
Yeah. He's had enough training under his belt where you could start in this exact spot with like this 180 drill up and down their block or something.
Would you change the area? Because I feel like
Sure.
he's got a lot of bad associations with the area.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. So generalize, obviously. Work this. Yourself. Like if you have another week with him, for example, take him 7 different places and work this in 7 different places, and get it this good in every one of those 7 places. This guy's pulling back. I think like the biggest kind of learning thing from like stuff like this is that short leash tends to hold the dogs back a little too much. You're preventing him from making the mistake, so he's never really learning from the mistake, right? So sometimes even with clients, because it's a hard habit to break to stop that, like shortening up the leash and pulling back on it and stuff like that, I'll even sometimes bust out a flexi lead, put it in their hands, because they physically cannot, even if they start moving the arm back, it's not pulling the dog at all, right? So it can help break that habit of pulling them, and you see the mistakes a little bit more clearly so you could actually correct for them. This looks great though. And this is the point you want to get to, is like sometimes with a dog like him, you may see initially as you start this process, they get a little stressed, but because he now has hit a point where you don't need to correct him anymore, he could actually recover from that, as opposed to if you're perpetually creating stress every walk you go on because you're nagging constantly. It's like then you keep them in that state of mind and make them, if anything, more likely to start the redirecting and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this looks a lot easier than I thought it was.
Yeah, just kind of simplify, Like I said, big picture is a little bit looser of parameters of where you're going to give your correction, but then more firm on those parameters you set. Sorry.
Here, he's down here now with like the corrections. The corrections are keeping him like at a higher arousal.
The constant
Nagging?
correcting and nagging creates frustration.
Okay.
Just look at yourself, and if somebody's nagging you, it's like every time you get nagged, you get a little more pissed and a little more pissed.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar with dogs. So.
All right, sweet.
Cool. And obviously, from there, you would get into doorways and all of that kind of stuff. We could talk about that another time, obviously. But right now, I would start with, if you go out for your walks and you just immediately start like that, you'll find that maybe you go out, need 1 or 2 corrections at the beginning, and then you're good to go for your whole walk,
What do I do if I run up on a dog and he starts to react?
Well, you would prevent him from reacting in the first place through that drill, right? So we never really needed to correct him around the geese because we got it under control before we ever got to the geese.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And obviously that one situation, I noticed one of these dogs he was kind of locking onto at the beginning when I first took the leash, and I did the same 180 drill with the correction there, broke his focus from it, got his attention back onto me, and we were good.
Cool.
So,
All right, sweet.
do you have any questions on that?
How do I transfer this to the client?
Yeah, you have to teach them that same thing.
Okay. So you teach them a low distraction area, and then you start adding.
Yeah.
And you
Add
start adding
distractions.
distractions to it.
100%. Yeah.
She lives at the head of a trail, where all the dogs go down
sure.
to the ravine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you have the ability to, you make sure it's good in that type of environment first before you transfer it to her. Like you take him somewhere like that, make sure it looks good, and then he's being good right now because of the drill you just worked, so they need to know how to do that exact same thing.
Okay, sweet. Good.
Sorry, so the drill is Exactly.
Okay, so specifically the adjustments that we made to things were, instead of being really naggy about like a heel position, it's like, God, you're 6 inches ahead, here's a correction. You're, 2 inches to the left, here's a correction, stuff like that. We loosened up the berth a little bit and allowed him to make committed mistakes of actually leaving us, right? He no longer was paying any attention. He was all the way up there, right? Super committed mistake. And then we gave a more firm correction than we would have with the naggy ones for that thing to make sure we kept consistent engagement and attention onto us.
Yeah, so higher correction, looser boundaries.
Bingo.
So even understands that you're correcting him, and it's not just like.
Yep. Yeah, and also this dog has had a little bit of work already from the standpoint of, you've obviously taught him a heel position, been enforcing it, so he knows the premise of stay with me,
Yeah. Exactly.
So where if I had a new board and train, maybe I would spend a day or two kind of shaping that position a little bit with the negative reinforcement with the leash pressure. Maybe I would start with a little bit of, negative reinforcement, pressure on, pressure off with the e-collar with it, and then eventually progress to this drill. But honestly, getting back to like as trainers, where you can kind of like jump ahead a little bit with things. I've done that same drill with brand new dogs before also, and they figure it out just fine.